Tracheostomy infection, low oxygen, and ENT ward care. A family's fight for answers. My name is Patrik Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com with another quick tip for families in intensive care. So here at intensivecarehotline.com, we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, control, power, and influence, making sure your loved one always gets best care and treatment, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. So today I have a question from a reader from Joanne, who says, "Hi, Patrik. My father had a tracheostomy 4 weeks ago. He was in intensive care for 2 weeks and then moved up to the ENT ward. He has issues with his oxygen levels, but the care of his tracheostomy, like cleaning it every day, I feel was locked down in the intensive care unit. He ended up getting an infection on it. He was told he could go on a ventilator if his oxygen levels didn't get any better. He's still having secretions. After 3 weeks, his oxygen level is very compromised. To be honest, I don't feel that the consultants knows what they're talking about. Please advise me on what's best to do for my father to safely heal and recover." From Joanna. Joanna, first of all, well done for reaching out and for pushing for answers instead of sitting back and hoping things sort themselves out. What you're describing is exactly the kind of gap I warn families about in intensive care. ICU level tracheostomy care simply because it does not exist on a general ward, including an ENT ward. That gap is very often where infections, secretions, and falling oxygen levels start. Before we look at the clinical picture, you might actually be wondering, what makes me qualified to talk about topics and answer questions for families in intensive care? So I've worked in critical care nursing for over 25 years in 3 different countries, where I worked as a nurse manager for over 5 years in intensive care. And I've been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care since 2013 here at intensivecarehotline.com. And I can very confidently say that we have saved many lives for our clients in intensive care. And you can verify that on our testimonial section at intensivecarehotline.com. And you can verify it on our intensivecarehotline.com podcast section, where we have done some client interviews. Back to Joanne's question. So let's look at the clinical picture and what's actually happening with your dad. Number 1, tracheostomy inserted 4 weeks ago with 2 weeks in ICU, followed by transfer to the ENT ward. In case you're wondering, what does ENT stand for? It stands for ear, nose, and throat. Number 2, tracheostomy site infection has developed since the ward transfer. Number 3, ongoing heavy secretions that are not resolving. Number 4, oxygen levels declining over the last 3 weeks, now describing as very compromised. Number 5, clinical team has flagged reventilation, going back onto a ventilator and into ICU as a real possibility if oxygenation does not improve. 2 problems are happening at the same time here, and they are feeding each other. Number 1, an infected tracheostomy that is not being cleaned and cared for to ICU standards, and worsening oxygenation that may partly be driven by that infection and by secretions blocking the airway. Neither problem exists in isolation, and neither should be managed in isolation. Let's now look at why this is happening, which relates back to the ICU to ward care gap. In ICU, with 24-hour critical care nurses, tracheostomy care, site cleaning, dressing changes, suctioning, humidification, and secretion management is done by 24/7 critical care registered nurses on a 1-to-1 nursing to patient ratio, multiple times per shift, as a matter of routine. On a general ward, including ENT, nursing ratios are typically 1:4, 1:6, and sometimes 1:10 or higher overnight, and tracheostomy care is not always a daily skill for ward nurses. That is not a criticism of ward staff. It is simply not their core speciality. A tracheostomy is an unstable airway. It, generally speaking, replaces a breathing tube in the mouth, and that happens in intensive care, nowhere else, with the exception of the emergency department and the operating room. But this is exactly the gap Joanne describes. The care of his tracheostomy, like cleaning it every day, I feel, was locked down in the intensive care unit. That is a good observation, because that is exactly what's happening, and I've seen it over and over again with similar devastating outcomes than you are currently experiencing with your dad. When daily site care drops in frequency or standard, colonization and infection risk goes up significantly. Add ongoing secretions that are not being cleared aggressively enough, and you get exactly what's happening here: infection plus failing oxygen saturation. Next, let's look at treatment options to discuss with the medical team, Joanne. Tracheostomy site swab and microbiology culture to identify the specific organism, followed by targeted, not blanket, antibiotic therapy. Next, increased frequency of tracheostomy site cleaning and dressing changes with qualified staff. Ask specifically for ICU nurses how many times per day this is happening now, because without ICU nurses that are trained and competent on tracheostomy, it will keep deteriorating. Number 3, review of suctioning frequency and technique, and whether humidification, heated humidification or a heat and moisture exchanger is adequate for the volume of secretions. Number 5, chest physiotherapy and or cough assist device to help mobilize secretions if he cannot clear them effectively himself. Number 6, formal reassessment against ICU step-down criteria. If oxygenation is genuinely declining, an ENT ward is probably not the safest environment right now. Number 6, discussion of non-invasive respiratory support such as high-flow oxygen or BiPAP as a bridge rather than jumping straight to full reventilation if clinically appropriate. And number 7, a clear written escalation plan. What oxygen saturation or blood gas results triggers a move back to ICU, step-down ICU or HDU. HDU stands for high dependency unit. You are entitled to ask for every single one of those steps in plain language and to ask for the reasoning behind whatever the ICU team or the ENT team decide or suggest. And Joanne, as part of this, I would strongly encourage you to request your father's full medical records ASAP, all nursing and doctor's notes, all specialist notes, all observation charts, all ventilation, tracheostomy chart. That includes oxygen saturations, respiratory rate, heart rate, also lab results, pathology, blood gas results, microbiology results where infections have been screened, suctioning frequency, medication chart, fluid balance charts. Leave no stone unturned. This is not about distrust for its own sake. It is about seeing the actual trend, not just the summary you're given verbally on the ward round, and to also make sure that what you've been told matches what is documented in the medical records. We often find a discrepancy between what's in medical records and what's being communicated verbally. And if you want a second independent ICU-trained set of eyes on your father's case to interpret the medical records, question the current plan, and help you advocate directly with the ENT and ICU teams, here's how you can get hold of me. Go to our website at intensivecarehotline.com and call me on one of the numbers on the top of our website at intensivecarehotline.com, or book a 15-minute free consultation call with me by clicking on the schedule appointment button. I offer free 15 minutes of consultation. After that, I have paid consulting and advocacy options. We also have a membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care. And you can become a member if you go to intensivecaresupport.org. Also, you can send us an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com. And now let's look further ahead, keeping your dad out of ICU for the long term. If your father ends up needing ongoing ventilation support, invasive ventilation with tracheostomy, or non-invasive such as BiPAP, CPAP without tracheostomy, or if the tracheostomy cannot be weaned without the ventilator, or if care moves towards palliative focus and you are okay with that, and your dad might need IDC, SBC, nasogastric, or PEG tube, there are long-term options that keep him out of ICU and out of hospital altogether. So our sister service is Intensive Care at Home, and you can find more information at intensivecareathome.com. With Intensive Care at Home, we are providing a genuine alternative to a long-term stay in intensive care by sending 24/7 intensive care nurses into your home, making sure your home stay is predictable and permanent, right? So that you don't go back to ICU. And we're cutting the cost of an ICU bed there by around 50%, which means the funding bodies have an interest in this model of care. And also, we're freeing up hospital beds and ICU beds. We are the only third-party accredited service for intensive care at home nursing in Australia. Currently, we are ISO 9001 2015 registered and accredited, and we are also NDS registered for intensive care at home nursing. If you're watching this, you're in the US, in the UK, in Canada, and India, or anywhere around the world, and you're interested in intensive care at home, please reach out to us as well. We can help you there too. Now, Joanne, here's the bottom line. You are doing exactly the right things by questioning the plan and reaching out for a second opinion. That instinct that your father is not getting ICU standard tracheostomy care on a general ward is a completely valid clinical observation, not just a feeling. Get the medical records, get an independent review of them, ask for a clear escalation plan, and don't be afraid to push respectfully until the answers make sense. We're here to help you do exactly that all the way along. I have worked in critical care nursing for 25 years in 3 different countries, where I worked as a nurse manager for over 5 years in intensive care. And I've been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care since 2013 here at intensivecarehotline.com. And I can very, very, very confidently say that we have saved many lives with our consulting and advocacy because of our insights, and you can verify that on our testimonial section at intensivecarehotline.com, and you can verify it on our intensivecarehotline.com podcast section, where we have done client interviews. And because our advice is absolutely life-changing, right? The biggest challenge for families in intensive care is simply that they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what to look for. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know their rights, and they don't know how to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care. And that's why we help you to improve your life instantly, making sure you make informed decisions, have peace of mind, control, power, and influence, making sure your loved one gets best care and treatment always. And that's why you can join a growing number of members and clients that we have helped over the years, saving their loved ones' lives. And that's why I do one-on-one consulting and advocacy over the phone, Zoom, WhatsApp, whichever medium works best for you. And I talk to you and your families directly. I handhold you through this once-in-a-lifetime situation that you simply cannot afford to get wrong. And when I talk to families directly, I also talk to doctors and nurses directly, asking all the questions that you haven't even considered asking, but must be asked when you have a loved one critically ill in intensive care. I also represent you in family meetings with intensive care teams. We also do medical record reviews in real time so that you can get a second opinion in real time. We also do medical record reviews after intensive care. So if in case you have unanswered questions, if you need closure, or if you are suspecting medical negligence. We also have a membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care, and you can become a member if you go to intensivecarehotline.com, if you click on the membership link, or if you go to intensivecaresupport.org directly. In the membership, you have access to me and my team 24 hours a day in a membership area and via email, and we answer all questions intensive care related. In the membership, you also have exclusive access to 21 ebooks and 21 videos that I've personally written and recorded. And all of that will help you to improve your life instantly, make informed decisions, have peace of mind, control, power, and influence, making sure your loved one gets best care and treatment always. And all of that you get at intensivecarehotline.com. Call us on one of the numbers on the top of our website, or simply send us an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. And if you like my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel for regular updates for families in intensive care. Click the like button, click the notification bell, share the video with your friends and families, and comment below what you want to see next, what questions and insights you have from this video. I also do a weekly YouTube live where I answer your questions live on a show, and you will get notification from the YouTube live if you are a subscriber to my YouTube channel, or if you are a subscriber to my intensivecarehotline.com email newsletter at intensivecarehotline.com. Thank you so much for watching. This is Patrik Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I will talk to you in a few days. Take care for now.